All right. Good evening, everyone. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Just give me a moment. Waiting for the host to give me rights to share my screen. Over here. Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Anshuman Sen, Professor Anshuman Sen. I will be taking this 1 hour session on helping you guys understand how we can. Wonderful. So here we are. Wonderful. Yeah. So hi. My name is Professor Anshuman Sen. I work with SIDTM, Symbiosis Institute of Digital and Telecom Management as an adjunct faculty. I conduct courses around solutions architecting over here and even RPA. Just to give you a quick background on myself, so I am, of course, alumnus of this very college. Have been did my MBA back in 2009, 2011. We were called SITM back then. Had a really wonderful time. Didn't understand cloud back then. Started my first startup when I was doing my summer internship. And since then, I have been playing around with AWS and cloud on and off, if I may say so. As of today, I deliver courses, of course, at SITTM, multiple Symbiosis schools as visiting faculty, different colleges, SIPM, SIMS, SIOM, SSBF, and all the others, where I go ahead and deliver various different courses. Of course, at SIDTM, I deliver cloud courses, as I said. And what I would be doing today is helping you understand a little bit about how probably cloud could help you as an MBA graduate, right? Usually you would go ahead and say that, Anshuman, when I'm looking at cloud, cloud is technology, tech guy should be doing it. Why should an MBA guy looking at cloud? So what I'm going to do is break down this session into a couple of parts. So the first part, we are going to speak about what cloud is. I might have a lot of participants over here who might not be from a tech background at all. And you would have heard about the buzzword cloud, AWS, Azure, etc., right? GCP around, and you might be intrigued as to how this is going to go ahead and help me. So what we are going to go ahead and do is we are going to, of course, look at that, and we are also going to go ahead and spend time in the next half trying to understand why cloud is necessary for us MBA graduates. So we're going to spend time around that. And the last part, I'm going to go ahead and take questions and queries that you might have, right? That's what we will do. So starting with my background of how much of cloud do I know to go ahead and speak about this session. So as of today, I have 8 certifications from AWS. Have been working I mean, using AWS since 12 years, if I may say so. And I have been teaching AWS since the last 3 years. I am a champion authorized instructor for AWS. So I teach on the AWS side of things, the corporate side of things. At SIDTM, we are AWS Academy partner, right? I'll want to go ahead and speak about SIDTM a little bit over here. So what you have over here is us, SIDTM. We are ranked 4th in Pune by the week in 2021. We go ahead and speak about digital and telecom, right? Primarily, that's what our students do. And what we have done is we have partnered with AWS Academy, AWS as Academy, where they help students get AWS training. And because I work on both the academy side of things, as well as work on what do you call it, the AWS side of things, I know what kind of content is shared. And I'll want to tell you this, that the content that AWS Academy provides is the same that we deliver in the corporate side of things. So AWS Academy brings in AWS content. We get AWS hands-on lab. I, as an instructor, of course, I go ahead and deliver that content. So AWS and SIDTM, we go ahead and work together in helping. And what kind of courses do we deliver? We have the Cloud Foundation. We have the Solutions Architect Associate. We have courses around AI and ML and analytics that I personally deliver over here from an AWS perspective. So that's about us. Why would you want to go ahead and speak about cloud computing at SIDTM. Of course, these are figures that the students help me get. I have no idea about it, but yeah, some of the things that we would want to go ahead and speak about is SIDTM within the SIU family. I think so is the only MBA college that has AWS Academy partnership. We also have UiPath Academy status, where we go ahead and speak about that. But that's a separate thing. I'm not going to go ahead and speak about that. But yeah, that's what we would want to go ahead and speak about. And yeah, that's me. Certified educator from AWS Academy, and I'm also a champion authorized instructor for AWS, as I said, right? So what I would want to do is, without wasting a lot of time, I would want to go ahead and help you understand cloud. And let me go ahead and do that fairly quickly. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. And what I'm going to do is I am a whiteboard guy, right? This is more of a session where we go ahead and speak about what whiteboarding. So I'm not going to go ahead and show you a boring slide deck. I think so I've done enough of that already. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and show you a whiteboard where we are going to kind of discuss things, right? So this is me bringing in my experience of close to 12 years building applications and running businesses. As I said, I ran a mobile app development firm. We used to build games on iOS and Android for a long, long time. As of today, I consult around cybersecurity, DevOps, and cloud security. So those are the primary things that I speak about. But let's first understand this whole idea of cloud, right? It's a buzzword, yes. As I said, why would we want to learn it from an MBA perspective? So the first thing we are going to go ahead and do is look at what is cloud, right? And before you go ahead and look at what is cloud, you will have to go ahead and ask, what was it before cloud, right? So when we say what was it before cloud, you go ahead and speak about this, that why are we talking about cloud in the first place? Step number one, you go ahead and say that a business use case is going to be that we want to host an app, right? This is what you are going to go ahead and do. When I say an app, right, an application could be any application, right? You go ahead and use so many ride-hailing applications, Ola, Uber, whatnot, right? All of them are running somewhere, right? There's an software that needs to run, and that software to run will need some hardware, right? And that hardware, if you go ahead and look at it, right, from a very simple perspective, that hardware is a computer, right? In the most basic of things, it's a computer. You're going to need some CPU, you're going to need some RAM, and you are going to need some storage. Plain Jane simple life, which means that let's say today I'm going ahead and starting a new business, right? And the first thing you're going to go ahead and do as a business, and I have done this for a long, long time. I go ahead and do is first thing I will need as a business is a website, right? And first thing I'll go ahead and say, need a website. I'll catch hold of a designer. That designer will go ahead and design that website for me. And the next thing I'm going to go ahead and ask is, host this website, right? That's what you're going to go ahead and ask, that where do we host this website? Now, when I say I want to go ahead and host this website, right? You will go ahead and say, where do I host it? So a lot of people will come back and tell me, Anshuman, let's go ahead and host it on GoDaddy or Big Rock or this Bluehost or these kind of things. What are they doing? To be very honest, let's just understand this. What they are doing is they are in some place going ahead and giving you a server space. So what you have is a server. Now, what is a server? Very simple. A server is a machine, which means that I could go ahead and, as of today, host a website on my laptop, right? I could go ahead and host it on one of these hosting providers, but please understand this. I could go ahead and host it on my laptop. I can, right? I hope you guys understand that. I can technically go ahead and host it on my website, laptop. Now, when I say I host it on my laptop, what do I mean by that, right? What do I need? So I am going to go ahead and need this. I'm going to need internet, right? High-speed internet is what I'm going to need. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and need is this. I'm going to go ahead and need 24/7 backup, right? I'm going to have backup power all the time. I probably will need a good CPU and RAM, right? That's what the requirement is. Now, this is not where the story stops, right? Me hosting a website, internet, 24/7 power, and good CPU and RAM. That's pretty much it. But the story doesn't stop here. You will go ahead and say that, Anshuman, I need disaster recovery. What if this laptop crashes? I mean, let's just ask this. People over here, You have been using a phone, you have been using a laptop. You would at least have one incident where your laptop has crashed. You have lost data. Your phone has crashed. You would have lost data. I have lost, I think so, 3 laptops in the last 12 years. They crashed. The motherboard went away. I couldn't get anything. I had to take off the hard disk out of it and then use it. Right. You have your phones that would have crashed. I mean, it would have fallen into water. I have had a couple of phones that I lost like that, right? You would have cases like that. So that's the same over here too. So I'm going to say this laptop, Anshuman, can go down. So I'm going to go ahead and need a backup, right? And the moment I go ahead and say backup, right, I need to go ahead and keep copies of it. Let's just assume that my website was, I mean, a very big website, a lot of images, 500 MB. I go ahead and take a backup every day, right? If I am going ahead and taking a backup every day, well, what kind of storage am I looking at? So you will go ahead and say backup every day, Anshuman. That's 500 MB into 30 days. That's like what? 1,500, right? If I'm correct, right? That's what I'm looking at. Oh, no, there's another zero that's going to come in, right? This is the kind of storage that I'm looking at. And if you do the maths, that's 15 GB a month, right? 15 GB a month, 12 months a year. That's a lot of storage that I'm looking at. Number one, right? Storage is going to go out of hand. And by the way, I'm talking about a very small website over here. I'm not even talking about enterprise grade applications, right? I'm looking at this kind of storage. So I'm going to keep that over there. Let's come back to the website itself, right? This laptop that I needed, you will go ahead and say, Anshuman, I need to go ahead and there are cybersecurity threats and whatnot. I need to run updates on it. Wonderful. So I'll need to go ahead and do updates. I will have to ensure that I reboot it often, right, etc., etc. And you're going to say, Anshuman, there's a lot of maintenance and a lot of cost. I mean, I was running a website. You are kind of giving me a couple of lakh rupees of bill to just run this, right? Can we reduce this a little bit? In comes the idea of virtualization, right? So what the world did is from running hardware, the world went ahead and said that I am not even using 100%, right? You might probably be running a 4-core machine with 16 GB of RAM over here, and let's ask yourself, are you utilizing that much of space? Absolutely not. So you're going to say that, Anshuman, I'm not even using that much of space, wasting a lot of money over here. Can we go ahead and optimize this a little bit? And this is where the whole idea of virtualization came in. So the world went ahead and said that instead of running one big server, right, server class machine, I'm going to go ahead and virtualize that. So I'm going to go ahead and on one big hardware, I'm going to split it into multiple smaller machines, and I'm going to go ahead and use this. And to do this, we needed one more software in there. So we bought something called the hypervisor that helped me go ahead and split these virtual machines and give them the underlying hardware. Wonderful. So now I have got virtual machines, and then this is what the world has been doing. But again, please remember, I have to still go ahead and maintain this underlying hardware. I still have to go ahead and then do the patches. I still have to go ahead and do the backups, right? And this for an organization is a huge overhead. So it's like me saying that I want to go ahead and live, right? I want to go ahead and live my life. And we go ahead and give multiple options. I go ahead and say that you purchase a house, right? You can purchase a house where you will have to go ahead and pay all the bills. You will have to go ahead and do all the maintenance, right? If the door breaks down, the electricity, the bulb goes, etc., etc., you pay all the bills and you do all the maintenance. And you're going to say, and a lot of MBA guys, right? I remember my batchmates. Once they got the job, they shifted to multiple different cities, and they would come back and say that, well, Anshman, we have got a house, but we hardly stay there. We are always moving around because your job demanded it. Which means if you go ahead and look at this environment, you go ahead and say that, Anshuman, I have to purchase this and then I have to maintain it. I live in there or I don't. In comes another idea where you go ahead and say that, Anshuman, let's go ahead and stay as a paying guest, right? I could live in a paying guest PG where I go ahead and say that I don't want to go ahead and look at this whole maintenance part. I go ahead and offload that to my PG guy, and I go ahead and, of course, I might be a little more, right? There's a delta. You will go ahead and say that, Anshuman, purchasing was an upfront, as you go ahead and say, OPEX, it's a CAPEX, right? That I would have when I purchase a server. Over here, you are shifting from an capex to an opex mode. So you go ahead and say that, well, instead of paying everything upfront, I'm going to go ahead and pay monthly, right? And this is what the cloud has gone ahead and done. The cloud has taken you from purchasing stuff, investing in a capex to an opex. They go ahead and say that this whole story that you were saying, I will go ahead and create an ocean of servers. I will go ahead and set up this whole infra. I will take care of the maintenance and I'm going to rent it out to you. I'm going to have you as a paying guest. You come in and in the cloud, you go ahead and pay on demand. You are like a paying guest. You go ahead and say that, well, I'm going to come in. I'm going to go ahead and pay and then use it for the time I want it, right? This is where the cloud comes in. Cloud goes and says that I'm going to go ahead and give you infra, virtualize infra, and you're going to pay me on demand, right? So if I don't want to stay there anymore, all I need to go ahead and do is simply delete everything, right? That's where the cloud comes into picture. Going from me maintaining the hardware, and please understand, when I want to go ahead and run this to scale, right? A typical organization wants to run this to scale, any application. Remember, I have to go ahead and look at the internet, the backup, the machines, updates, reboot, and not to forget the physical security. Right? There's a physical security. I need to go ahead and put CCTV cameras. I need to put a security guard. I need to big boundary walls. I will need a roof. I will need a place. All of this comes at a cost. Huge investment. In comes cloud saying that you move away from buying stuff to renting stuff. And the world liked it, right? And why did the world like it? Is the fact that these cloud providers are saying that we will go ahead and give you things on rent. And trust me, I as a startup back in 2010, if I had to go ahead and launch an application, meant I had to buy a server, that was very costly, right? And that's where cloud providers like AWS initially targeted. AWS went ahead and targeted startups. You wanted to build a mobile application, you wanted to build a game, you wanted to have anything, you go ahead and start running, right? Please understand, for me to buy a server, this capex part, if you guys aren't aware of, some organizations would take a couple of months. Imagine I need a server. I go ahead and raise a request to my boss. My boss is going to go ahead and then tell it to the purchase department. There's going to be a process. There's going to be an approval process. And then I'm going to get the server. Then I will set it up. Then I will run it. A lot of time. This is where the cloud comes in. And at the click of a button, I can go ahead and start working. Now the cloud, right? All the cloud providers, because you are getting everything virtually, they brought in this idea of what we go ahead and call as APIs. I mean, I'm going to be honest, APIs is not a cloud thing, but every cloud works on an API. So this whole idea is that everything over here, whatever I need, right? I need storage. The cloud has storage. I need infra. When I say infra, so these are all infra services. I need storage. I need a virtual machine, right? So basically, we say compute in the cloud. We go ahead and say compute. You need a DB, etc., etc. All of this is here, and all of this is provided as what we call as an API. Application programming interface. What is an API? Well, instead of you going ahead and physically saying that I want something, you go ahead and programmatically ask for it, right? So now, if I wanted to set up a machine, let's just imagine you want to go ahead and write a piece of code, or you want to make a PPT example, right? If I wanted to make a PPT until some time back, you would have to actually buy a laptop. Agreed, right? You have a laptop. On that laptop, you would install Microsoft Office, and then you would go ahead and be able to make your PPT. Or you wanted to work with an Excel, you would have to buy a laptop, go ahead and install Office, and then do that. As of today, that has changed. Everything is a program. API basically means a software program. I mean, I want to put it very simply for everyone. So everything now is a simple program, right? So when I go ahead and do that, right? So what am I doing? Like, let's just imagine today, if I want to make a PPT, I go ahead and open a laptop or even a phone, right? There is the cloud-based PPT on either Google or Microsoft. I go ahead and open their app and simply start designing it. Do I need to purchase a laptop to do that? I mean, I wanted to edit a video, right? Edit a video definitely meant buying a big laptop, spending lakhs of rupees. As of today, I have a phone. I connect to a remote server where it is running and I go ahead and build it, right? Everything is being done over an API. right? And that is the beauty that cloud brings into picture, right? So cloud is moving everything from being hardware based to software based. Now, what does it mean for you? Please understand this. As an organization, I had to go after a lot of operational expenses, which were overhead. As I said, I will need security guards. I will need electricity bill that I'm taking care of. I will have to pay that. I have internet bill. My internet line would be cut, etc., etc. Right? A lot of overhead that my organization was spending on. And please understand that's also an effort, right? I have to go ahead and manage that. Now, as a business, I don't really look after the hardware. What I go ahead and do is I now look after the software part of it, which means my application part of it. What do I want from my customer, right? And this is where the cloud is coming in. All the cloud providers that are there are doing exactly this, right? They are giving you that infra as in software as a service. So I get in and I can design stuff. So for me, saying that I need a server and taking a couple of months to me saying that I want to design and deploy something for you today, and by evening I can go ahead and have that because I do have the access to the server to do it, right? This is the beauty that cloud brings into the table. Now, all cloud providers have this idea that they would have what we call as an API that you go ahead and say that I want a server, or you go ahead and say I want storage, right? Or you go ahead and say I want a TB, right? Whatever you want to go ahead and say, they have that. Right? This is what the world started with, of course, 10, 15 years back. This is not something recent. They have been doing this for almost 10, 15 years. As of today, most of them have evolved. So they went from being what we went ahead and called as infra as a service, where you would go ahead and say, I need the virtual machine, I need a database, I need storage. The cloud providers would give it to you, to you facing this challenge that I'll give you an example. So even when I go ahead and take infra as a service, like example, this website idea that I was talking about, right? Let's say I want to go ahead and host a website. And when I want to host a website, I had to take these steps earlier. So I had to first get a physical machine. Then I would have to install the OS on it. Number three, I would need a web server. Web server is, by the way, a software, right? So I will need a web server. On top of it, I will need the website tech, right? And then my code would come in, right? Now, if I go ahead and take a virtual machine, what happens is the cloud provider will give me the physical. So this fellow over here is taken care of. And this is also taken care of. But you still have to do all of this. Like example, if I go ahead and say this, that I wanted to go ahead and run a website and I'm a WordPress guy. So if I wanted to run a WordPress site, right, I have to go ahead and take a Linux box from the cloud provider. Then I would, on top of it, go ahead and install a web server, Apache or Nginx or any of these. Then I would need to go ahead and install PHP because, WordPress runs on this. Then I will need to install WordPress, and then I would go ahead and bring my own code, right? Still, I am doing a lot of things on my own, right? Infra as a service. The cloud provider will give you plain Jane infra. In comes the second part to the story, where they went ahead and said that you probably do not have enough capabilities because I remember doing this in 2010. I didn't know Linux. I remember I called in one of my developers because one of my customers, for the first time, she came up to me and she was like, Anshuman, we need to go ahead and host this server on AWS. I was like, wonderful. She gave me access, even lovely. I called in my developer and he, remember his name, Rahul. I called in Rahul. I'm like, Rahul, you're a PHP guy. You have 3, 4 years of experience. Go ahead and set up this server. He gave me a stare, 5 minutes stare. I'm like, Rahul, what happened? He's like, Anshuman, I am a developer. I am not a sysadmin. This, what you're asking me to go ahead and do is sysadmin job. I don't know this. Wonderful. So this is where we went ahead and said that we would probably need something else. Cloud providers have what we call as platform as a service. In platform as a service, they will go ahead and give you all of this. So you simply go ahead and take care of the code. So as platform as a service, if I were to go ahead and look at, right, this whole thing, the cloud provider would necessarily go ahead and do these for you. So the cloud provider will give you physical machine, install OS, web server, website technology, you're only responsible for the code. Over here, I am responsible for all of this. This is platform as a service, right? Every kind of what do you call it? Cloud provider will have platform as a service, right? Then comes in the latest one. The latest one is what we go ahead and call as software as a service, which you guys would have heard about. And let me go ahead and tell you as to what software as a service in the cloud right now is. The software as a service part is the most interesting part right now, and the cloud providers actually call it serverless, right? What is this idea of serverless? The idea of serverless is very simple. Serverless says that, you just bring in your piece of code, right? Over here too, I was responsible for my code, but remember there's an underlying platform altogether. Software as a service that has come in, they go ahead and say that you want to go ahead and run something, we will give you everything, right? You simply need to, what do you call, bring in your piece of code. Like I am from an AWS, right? As I said, AWS background. So if when I look at AWS go ahead and says that I have got S3 as a service. S3 is their storage, object storage, used by multiple services. S3 object storage simply says that you want to store something, you give it to us, we will store it, and we will bill you for the amount of storage that you use. We will go ahead and create multiple copies of that data so that in case of there is a failure, I will take care of it. Right? Remember, I spoke about this fellow over here, backup, etc., etc. Not required. The cloud provider provides all of that for you, right? So what am I doing is I am not looking at any of those. I am now looking at simply my piece of code, and this is where we are now looking at cloud, and this will bring us to the second part. So this was the most basic of things, right? As to where cloud data is, right? So let's go ahead and look at how does cloud fit in to the overall landscape of you as an MBA kid. Right. So if you are applying to do an MBA, where do you fit in? And then I see a lot of questions are coming in. Uh, okay, coming down to all these questions. Lovely, multiple questions. Okay, I will go ahead and answer all your questions, but you'll need to give me a little bit of time. Right. So coming down to questions over here as to how does a MBA kid look into cloud? Why are you looking at cloud? So let me just go ahead and tell you this. So as of today, right, everything is running on the cloud. You go ahead and take your banking application on the cloud. You go ahead and take your ride hailing applications, as I said, on the cloud. You go ahead and shop, everything is on the cloud. Why is it on the cloud? I told you the reason, right? Organizations are moving away from that huge capital expenditure to go ahead and look at an operational expenditure, right? This is what we go ahead and then speak about, that I'm moving from this architecture to this architecture. Now, having said this, right? Having said this, anything and everything that we are building or running as of today is backed by IT. I mean, let's just ask ourselves this. You guys want to get into banking. So a lot of people over here will be from a finance background. So you will go ahead and say, Anshuman, we want to go ahead and get into banking. I mean, I interact with a lot of banks. I speak to a lot of RM guys, etc., all of those guys, right? Most of these banking guys, either finance, we go ahead and speak about fintech, right? I work on the side of audit and a lot of other things also. I have seen a lot of banks being on cloud. Now, if I am on the banking side, right, any side, you go ahead and see that, Anshuman, I want to be on the operational side of banks. I want to be on the investment side of banks. I want to be on the relationship management side of banks. Anything that you go ahead and take, most of your applications right now are on the cloud, right? Most of them would be in the cloud, which means that, let me go ahead and take this example. So you go ahead and say that, Anshuman, I'm from marketing, right? You go ahead and say marketing. Marketing as of today, we go ahead and say digital marketing. That's what we go ahead and all agree. So digital marketing, you will go ahead and say, Anshuman, I want to run a few tools. Like tools. I'll give you an example. So you go ahead and say that, Anshuman, I am actually running a campaign as of today. And for that campaign, I and understand how I go about targeting these people. So you will go ahead and say that, Anshuman, I have been able to get some surveys in, and then I've got some data, right? And I want to run some queries on it. And if you are looking at data at scale and you want to go ahead and run queries, the next question you will go ahead and ask is, Anshuman, there's a lot of data. If I were to go ahead and run this kind of query on a machine, I mean, I have got a Excel sheet, a CSV that I got a dump out of people. That's in a couple of GBs, right? I tried to open it on my Microsoft Excel on my machine and I couldn't, right? So is there a way that I could probably run a query somewhere, right? Most of the cloud providers have gone ahead and now created softwares, if I may say so, solutions that can go ahead and let you run queries by gigs and teras in seconds. And if you were to set up that kind of an environment, please understand it would need you to go ahead and spend a lot of money. Over here, you're not even talking about that. You go ahead and say that how much of terabytes of data that your query scanned, and you could run with it, and you would be paying a few cents. I mean, most of the cloud providers still speak in dollars. So I'm speaking about cents over here. So if you go ahead and do that conversion, you might spend 100 200 bucks to run this. And I have asked my students over here. I was taking a class on analytics for these kids, and we were looking at a data set which was 2 GB, right? And I asked them, this is a CSV of 2 GB. Can you go ahead and open it on your machine? None of them could, right? And I showed them how I could serverlessly, as you go ahead and say, run a query on that data in seconds, right? And I didn't even get billed for it, for that matter. So if you are looking at marketing, most of your tools are there, right? That's one. You go ahead and say that, Anshuman, we want to do sales. Wonderful. You want to go ahead and do sales. Most of the organizations would have some IT part to it. So if you're looking at a sales of an organization as of today, you might go ahead and say that, Anshuman, we want to go ahead and sell an application. You want to sell an application. All of these guys are going to go ahead and ask you about what kind of disaster recovery setup have you set up, right? Your tool that is there, how secure is your tool, what kind of disaster recovery have you set up, etc., etc. And if you want to do that on your on-prem, you understand what kind of cost you're looking at. You go to any of the cloud providers, you could go ahead and set up DR and security pretty easily, right? So those, you go ahead and look at another aspect. I will tell you an example, and this I heard from one of my juniors from SIDTM, working for an organization. They do strategy consulting as of today. I was speaking to him, I think so, a year and a half back, 2 years back. I was speaking to them, and he said that, Anshuman, we were working with the what do you call call center. So we were working with the BPO, and they were trying to set up this fact that we wanted to go ahead and set up a whole call center environment for them, and they wanted it to be very, very secure. So when I say secure, they were looking at fraud detection and all of that to be built in. You would go ahead and say, Anshuman, that's a very complex deployment, right? I need to be able to go ahead and do fraud detection when somebody is calling their call center. So let's say they're a bank and then somebody calls them up. I want to go ahead and do a voice detection on their call and be able to figure out if it's the original owner of that account who's calling us, that's somebody else, right? That's going to take millions of dollars, and I'm going to take a couple of years to set this up. In comes solutions by cloud providers like Amazon. AWS has a solution called as AWS Connect, right? And Connect is something for call centers, PPOs, KPOs, that is set up, that already has inbuilt machine learning algorithms set up. You can go ahead and set all of this up in less than a day, integrate it with your existing system, where you can have fraud detection and all of this brought in, right? All of this into your system. Just imagine, right? What you would have taken millions of dollars, years to build. I'm talking about being able to set it up in a couple of days, from an integration to deployment. Just imagine that I am an organization. I am trying to solve a problem. Now, you could be on the BPO side, BPO KPO side, right? You might say that, Anshuman, I have nothing to do with tech, right? I'm running a call center for a banking customer. I am running a call center for a telecom operator. Or you could say that, Anshuman, I am running a call center for one of these marketplace selling applications, right? I'm running a OLX or something of that sort. Over there, if I want to go ahead and do this, there are solutions by these cloud providers. So it's not just me about saying that I'm going to go ahead and sell cloud or I'm going to build applications. So cloud is not just for your IT guys. I mean, you will find n number of use cases where you could go ahead and do this. I remember I was speaking to a CA last year, earlier this year. Yeah, I was speaking to a CA, and this fellow was like, Anshuman, I get a lot of data. So all my customers that I go ahead and audit all their data, all that files that come in, there's a huge amount of data. If I go ahead and store it in my office, all those stack of things, that's a lot of data. Can I move all that data to cloud? Yes, go ahead and scan them, ship it to one of the object storage of any of the cloud providers. right? And that is where I will go ahead and start taking questions. So first one, let me go ahead and take the first one. So Vanshika has gone ahead and asked, what is the difference between hybrid cloud and hybrid IT? Well, I'm not sure. I've not heard about the hybrid IT part. Hybrid cloud, I can tell you. That's something that I can speak about. So hybrid cloud, what is the idea of hybrid cloud is very simple. We go ahead and speak about this idea that I have my cloud, right? So I have my cloud over here. Oops, no, bad decision to use that. Let me go ahead and use this one. So I have my cloud, right? Now, a lot of organizations and are uh, regulated, and they need to go ahead and have a lot of things which they need to have on-prem, as you say, right? Or they might have legacy applications. So you could have scenarios where organizations have legacy application, or you have scenarios where organizations are mandated to go ahead and be on absolute non-shared hardware, right? Of course, most of the cloud providers also provide you non-shared hardware as of today, but there might be organizations that need non-shared hardware, or you might have legacy applications and things that you can't move to the cloud. In that case, what you will go ahead and do is you will have on-prem that is running, and you would have few things that are running on the cloud, right? In that case, we go ahead and call it as a hybrid cloud. Now, again, please remember, a lot of organizations might be multi-cloud for that matter, from high availability perspective, reducing risk perspective, right? And that's where the whole idea of hybrid cloud comes into picture. And hybrid cloud, trust me, is very popular. Migrating everything from on-prem to cloud is not that easy, right? You might have a lot of legacy applications, a lot of licensing, etc., etc. And forget all of that. Just imagine I have spent millions of dollars setting this place up. I have rented this place or probably bought this place. I have set up a setup over here. There are people that are employed over here. I can't just say that I'm going to move everything to the cloud. Even if the cloud sounds very good, moving everything to the cloud is not going to be possible for a lot of organizations, various reasons. In that case, you're going to be running something on-prem and cloud, and that's where your hybrid cloud comes into picture. And hybrid cloud is a reality. Hybrid cloud could be cloud and on-prem. Hybrid cloud, for that matter, could be multi-cloud. I see a lot of organizations that might be running their workloads on AWS, GCP, and Azure. That's perfectly fine, right? Organizations have that. They want to go ahead and diversify their risk, as they say. So hybrid cloud does work. Uh, what are the platforms used for large scale cloud computing? Lokesh, again, you have to understand when you say large scale cloud computing, what am I really looking at? As I said, we are now looking at a fact that I don't want to look at what hardware I have. The whole objective now has shifted to getting the job done. When I say I want to get the job done, I don't care what kind of hardware. Is that hardware going to meet my cost parameters? And is that hardware going to get the job done for me? Right. So we are looking at that perspective. And as an MBA, again, I'm not interested in what is underneath. I'm interested in the solution. Like I told you about the call center, right? There was a problem. I'm solving that problem. As I said, I had a couple of GBs of data from my marketing data. I want to go ahead and query that data and figure out stuff, right? That's more important to me. So in that case, that is what we look at. Is our data secure on cloud, Himanshu? I don't think so. We go ahead and ask that question anymore. You will have to ask this. So all cloud providers speak about a shared responsibility model, right? This is what every cloud provider goes ahead and speaks about. We go ahead and say that security of the cloud is the cloud provider's responsibility. Security in the cloud is the customer's responsibility. That's what we go ahead and speak about. When I say security in the cloud is customer's responsibility, which means your data is your responsibility. Which means if you go ahead and use a very weak password, you're going to be hacked. You go ahead and put your credentials in your code and upload it to Git, you are going to be hacked. We go ahead and recommend that you use your own keys for encryption, right? All cloud providers give you that option. So data in the cloud, your responsibility of the cloud is the cloud provider's responsibility. Like we spoke about virtual machines. So earlier they used to be fair that, Anshuman, I'm on a shared hardware. Will my data get exploited? Please remember all the controls that a cloud provider will go ahead and provide uh, blocks data from leaking between customer to customer. It's again, you might go ahead and put your own checks. As I said, you go ahead and encrypt data and keep. You upload encrypted data in the first place. If you go ahead and upload encrypted data, well, your solution is there. So this is where cloud security guys come in, right? Again, So you're asking about opportunities. Glad that you guys asked this question. We have a lot of opportunities around people who understand cloud and do audits. So example, I'll tell you, if I go ahead and do a bank audit as of today, I have to understand cloud to be able to do it. Just imagine, take a step back and breathe and understand this. I'm saying I'm going to audit a bank. I should be looking at the financial controls, etc., not cloud control. Well, I have to, because there's RBI that is asking for those controls to be put into picture. As we said, my data, what controls have you got around that data? Are you meeting our compliance rules, right? So security guys, if you are looking at cyber security, you have to understand cloud. You can't do cyber security without cloud. You want to do data analytics, you can't do it as of today without cloud. You can't go ahead and say that I'm going to be looking at terabytes of data without getting that bigger server. Now that bigger server will be priced at a couple of $1 million. You can't go ahead and afford that. As an organization, you don't want to. You would be looking at something serverless. Cloud providers have that. So if I want to do data analytics, I need to know cloud to be able to do it. That's what we do at SIDTM. So my guys over here, we teach them how to go ahead and run analytics, how to use those tools of cloud. So yes, I need to understand the basics. I need to understand how to run those Python scripts and ML scripts and all of those. But I need to understand how cloud will reduce my cost. Because your organization is going to go ahead and say that, one, you have got a wonderful bottle. How do I go ahead and deploy it that is financially viable to the organization? That's where cloud comes into picture. And employee in depth, Tanipu, that's what I'm talking about, right? As to what opportunities there are opportunities from sales side, there are opportunities for marketing guys, there's opportunities for implementers. I mean, you go ahead and look at anything. I'm going to be honest. My batchmates, we did our MBA in 2011, right? You would guess these guys have at least 10, 12 years of work ex. Most of my batchmates are getting cloud certified as of today. You would assume that, well, you have worked a lot, you should be in a very good position. Yes, they are, but the market demands cloud knowledge. All of my batchmates, my seniors, my juniors, I'm seeing that. So you wanted to become a consultant, you wanted to join one of the big fours or any of those, you will need basic cloud requirements. I mean, go ahead and look at any of the JDs, they will speak about cloud, right? Any knowledge, because you are going to audit something, you're going to suggest strategy, right? You're going to go ahead and say, well, I'm going to go ahead and suggest a strategy for you. Well, cloud is going to be a part of that strategy. Anything that you're going to take, so it's going to be there. What are we looking at? Which platforms are used for, like, why am I seeing questions that are being repeated? Asmana, are there any other questions? Am I missing something over here? I'm going to wait for questions you guys can ask. And again, these are small examples. I mean, again, let's do this. So as I said, consulting, start consulting, or analytics, or big data, whatever you go ahead and speak about, all of them are looking at cloud. The reason is very simple. Uh, Cloud is the backbone right now, right? And I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to go ahead and speak about this. So we are hearing 5G as the buzzword, right? And you might be very interested. Telecom guys, non-telecom guys, everybody's running towards 5G as of today. Most of the cloud providers, or at least AWS, has a lot of 5G investment. I'll give you an example. So I'll speak about a service in AWS. So AWS has something called as a wavelength zone. What is a wavelength zone? Well, let me help you understand. So technically, if I am running an application, right, you will go ahead and say that, Anshuman, I want to use 5G. You all customers over here, right? You might be waiting for 5G to come in, and it's going to increase my speed blazing fast, right? Let me help you understand this. So you as a user, right, you are going to go ahead and connect over 5G to the telco provider, right? Telecom operator over here, their network over here, 5G. Wonderful. So you connect to them over 5G. And then what happens? Where is your server? Your server is on some cloud. Telco to cloud provider is going to flow through those normal lines again, right? That's what I'm going to do. AWS over here, right? And this is where AWS has come up with a solution called as Wavelength Zone. What they have done is they have partnered with telco providers, and they are going to allow you to run your network, your application on the edge. So instead of your servers being here, move servers from here to the telco data centers. Now I have two 5G. I'm no longer looking at 5G and then my normal internet pipe. I'm talking about 5G and coming back on 5G. This is another thing that is moving. So if you were to go ahead and recommend a 5G implementation to a customer 2 years down the line, that's what the world is doing right now. That's what's happening in India. Well, that's what you will be going ahead and speaking about, right? So as you can understand, I need to understand 5G. I need to understand cloud. If I didn't know that this existed, honestly, I'm way behind, right? I'm not going to be able to speak the same language. I would say so, right? I'm going to pause here. Anybody has any doubts, questions that we could go ahead and take over here? Any more questions flowing in? I'll probably also want to go ahead and add a few things that you might not directly get a opportunity in the cloud, right? So at SIDTM, we don't have direct cloud hires, but we have organizations that go ahead and help other organizations do cloud migrations or cloud deployments, or for that matter, anything. And since the last 3 years that I have been delivering cloud courses within AWS, specifically the AWS courses within SIDTM, I have heard multiple students go ahead and get hired, be it analytical profiles, be it sales profile, be it marketing profiles, be it project manager profiles, be it business analyst profiles, anything, right? There's always a cloud flavor, right? Could be storage, could be compute, could be databases, could be any of those. And one very important thing that I want to point out over here, most of the cloud providers in their service offering are almost the same. They go ahead and speak the same language. Their naming convention might be different. Yes, all of them have different price points that they work around, different partnerships that they have, and then etc., right? But of course, AWS is the largest in the market at this moment, and that's what we go ahead and deliver at SIDTM. I see more questions coming in. What are the most essential things that you would want to go ahead and follow? Okay, most essential things that you would follow before going for cloud computing platform. Of course, we go ahead and look at cloud migration. So when we are speaking about cloud, I mean, again, you could be in two buckets, right? You could be somebody who's starting right in the cloud, born in the cloud, as you go ahead and say. New age fintech organizations, all of them are born in the cloud. Or you could be somebody who's migrating to the cloud. So when you are born in the cloud, of course, it's pretty easy to manage that. But if you are looking at what do you call it, migrating, then of course there are a lot of things that you would want to go ahead and look at. Like, just to give an example, first thing you will want to understand is licensing, right? So you might have a lot of existing licenses that you have taken, right? Software licenses, hardware licenses, etc. So you will have to understand how do you move those licenses out. You would also have to look at what do you do of the existing hardware, right? There is going to be a lot of existing hardware. And I remember this, one of my batchmates actually was looking for a shift in an organization. And this is one of the interview questions that he had, that we have an on-prem and we are looking to move out to the cloud. What will we do with our existing hardware? Big question, right? You have a lot of capital expenditure there. What am I doing of it? Right? So I would have to go ahead and look at existing licensing, existing hardware. Another thing that you will have to go ahead and look at is what happens to your employees, right? You will have to go ahead and upskill them. The knowledge that they had on-prem will go ahead and completely change the way they work. Some of the people will have to be retrained, reskilled to go ahead and work on the cloud, because a lot of things are going to change, right? What you would do physically changes. Looking at cloud security is very different from looking at physical security, right? So all of those is what we would go ahead and need to do, Prashant. Soumya is asking about edge computing. So edge computing, well, just to give you an idea, this thing that I spoke about, the wavelength zone is edge computing in the most basic of things, right? Typically, this is what happens, right? Your user would hop into towards the cloud provider. Remember, the cloud provider would be running data centers, which are very concentrated in areas, but you could be very far away. Now that adds a lot of latency. So a lot of cloud providers go ahead and provide you opportunities to do edge computing. When I say edge computing is computing that is not running in the data center, right? That is running close to your computer customers, where I am cutting down that whole time that would take. So a lot of decision could be taken on the edge, and most cloud providers have edge network, as you go ahead and say, where you can go ahead and run compute. Remember that compute might be expensive, that compute might be limited as to what you can go ahead and do. Like, just to give an example, the type of servers that I could run on my cloud provider and the type of servers that I would run on the edge would be much different, right? You might not have a lot of opportunity to run here. So that's what we go ahead and very basically put edge computing. Atish is asking, big enterprises are using bare metal server for critical servers instead of cloud computing, better cost effective, but to shift to cloud. Uh, Atish, again, please understand that the cloud providers also go ahead and give you a lot of bare metal servers, right? So bare metal server is you being in control of the server. You This could be from you saying that, well, I want to go ahead and scale up to a certain extent, etc., etc. Remember, the moment you go to a bare metal server or any of those, primarily you would want to go to them from a compliance perspective. Cost wise, they do not justify their reasoning. So until and unless you have a compliance requirement or a licensing requirement that actually asks you to go to that, or you're running a big machine learning or very big computing that you actually need that, does not make sense to go there, because most of the cloud providers do go ahead and ensure that they give you your money's worth. So you go ahead and say that I want a 16 gig machine. They will not go ahead and share that with others. There are different classes of machines, you will have to remember, right? That they give you. And please remember, as of today, when we speak about cloud, we are no longer speaking about the hardware itself. We are speaking about another level of virtualization, which is containers. I mean, even banking applications as of today are running on containers. We want to move away from that idea of hardware, paying for hardware, maintaining hardware. Please understand that's a huge cost. So that's something that the organizations are trying very hard to move away from. So you will have some set of bare metal, but remember, you will have a healthy mix of other server types and containers and a lot of others too. So, others, the whole idea of on demand is pretty simple, right? As I said, the whole idea of on demand is the fact that I was speaking about this way, that I go ahead and say that I have an ocean of hardware that the cloud provider has. Now, cloud provider, because they're running at scale, as you say, right? That whole idea of volume game, as you say. So the cloud provider is running a huge, as you go, economies of scale. They go ahead and make purchases by a huge size. That is how they go ahead and get very cost effective hardware. And that ocean of servers, they go ahead and give you one virtual machine. So you go ahead and say that I want to run a virtual machine, right? They go ahead and give you that server, and you only pay for the time that you run. Like on AWS, if you're running a Linux box, you pay by the second. And if you're running a Windows machine, you pay by the hour, right? So you run it for 10 hours and then you stop it. You only pay for 10 hours, right? It's not saying that I have bought a hardware and now I'm not running it. I have spent money on it. I have spent a couple of lakhs on it. It's just sitting there, right? It's like you buying that sports thing that you liked, or that t-shirt or jeans that you liked. You bought it. It was funky, but you're no longer using it, and you can't return it. On demand will go ahead and let you do that. And the cloud providers also help you save cost by reserving. So most of the cloud providers will have an idea of reserving. So you can go ahead and say that I'm going to keep this server for a year. Will you give me a discount? Of course. So cloud providers give you a discount using some plan that they will let you. Plus, there are multiple other ways of getting machines. So depending on your workload, you can do that. Any other questions are we looking at? I think so. We are pretty much close to the hours mark that we had. So I'll probably go ahead and quickly summarize very quickly. So what we spoke about over here over the last 1 hour was, of course, looking at the very basics of cloud, saying that running things on on-prem. If I want to go ahead and run any software, I would need a hardware. That hardware I usually need to purchase, then have the maintenance, etc., etc. The cloud provider is simply going ahead and saying that instead of you buying, I'll go ahead and rent it out, right? Because you don't need it 24/7. Because you don't need it 24/7, I'm going to go ahead and give you on rent. That's the whole idea of cloud. So instead of you running your server here, the cloud provider does that. They go ahead and virtualize it. They go ahead and secure it. They do the hardware upgrades, everything for you. And then they have multiple buckets. The cloud provider has also evolved, right from just giving you infra to platforms altogether, and now going ahead and giving you software as a service. As I said, example being AWS Connect, where I said that I want to set up a whole call center. I want to have the whole idea of fraud detection, etc., machine learning, everything built in. There's everything in there. I simply go ahead and deploy it, and I'm through. Or me saying that, well, I have got a lot of data. I want to run queries on it. Go ahead and run some analytics, some dashboards, some charts to it. There are tools like multiple tools that are out there. Athena, Glue, etc., that can do that whole job for me. I don't need to set up servers, right? I'm moving away from that idea of setting up servers, spending huge amount of money, and then doing that. The cloud providers are taking that off for me. How do they give you things for such a cost effective price? They are doing at scale, right? What you would have done for your organization, and then you would agree to this, that if I go ahead and hire a sysadmin who's going to maintain my server, right? Imagine I'm running 10 applications. My guy is going to work for 10 hours in the whole month. They still have 150 hours left. I go ahead and share them across, right? That's the whole idea that we work with, right? So I'm going to pause here. I think so we're right by the clock. If there are any final questions, I would love to take it. Otherwise, uh, all the very best. I hope you guys are going to appear for Snap, which is coming up. I think so 4 5 days remaining for you to sign up for SAP. Uh, please do. And if you do have any questions, queries, you can of course send it to us on our email or any of our channels. My students are here, or even me. I go ahead and answer questions. Yeah. Um, thank you so very much. All the very best. Okay. So Asbana is telling me there are two more questions that are coming. So I'm going to hold on to those two questions. Tish Kumar says, can big enterprises shift from bare metal to cloud platform for high performance application? Again, Tish, you have to understand that if you're looking at high performance and then you want to be on bare metal servers, the cloud providers have it. They are going to go ahead and reduce your cost. But then again, what kind of performance are you looking at, and then how long do you want to run it, right? What is it that you want to achieve? So there's always going to be a big. I mean, you will have to do a cost versus performance versus all of those analysis to be able to reach to that. And remember, cloud is popular, but does not mean that every the answer to every question is cloud. You will have to go ahead and do a cost versus benefit analysis that will need to be done for any organization. So you just putting in a question and asking, is that shift going to work? I can't, I don't think so I can answer that straight away. I'll have to understand what is the use case, how long do we want to use it, what is the price that I'm getting on the open market, what will be the cost to go ahead and run it, what will be my delta, right? And how long do I want to run it? So all of those I will want to go ahead and analyze before I come down to that. Ayush says, what is the use of API? Well, Ayush, everything in AWS, as I said, is an API. So as I said, if I want to run a server, right, I want to go ahead and create a website. So you'll go ahead and say, typically, as I said, that's what I started with. I will have to buy a laptop, install things, right? Over here, everything is an API call. So I go ahead and write a piece of command. I can do it through the console too. I can do through multiple other tools that I go ahead and say that I want a server. right? There's an API for it. There's an application programming interface that AWS or any other cloud provider has. Whatever service you want is an API, right? Nothing is physical. Everything is virtual, as you could say. Of course, there is something physically running. That's what the cloud provider has abstracted for you. Right. So yeah, that's what I would put it. Aswana, any other questions that we need to take? Perfect. So wonderful. Yeah, I think so. We are 2 minutes over the time. All the very best, everyone. Hope you guys hope to see you on the other side at SITM if anyone of you would be interested. All the very best. Yeah. Have a good day. Bye.
So we can conclude the meeting.
End it.
Yes.